In April this year, the Danish beer maker Carlsberg put its reputation on the line when it launched an advertising campaign that admitted its beer in Britain wasn't what it was supposed to be. It was an admission that could only come as a result of a profound change in the culture of the company brought about by this man, Cees de Hart, a Dutchman with a reputation for forging unity from division.
Well, when I came in this business, I started to talk with many people. I think I had 200 interviews, and everybody more or less said the same. This is a siloed company.
I'm David Tweed. This is Bloomberg Turnaround. Join me to see how CEO Cees de Hart put the froth back into Carlsberg. When Cees de Hart arrived at Carlsberg in 2015, he found a company demoralised by a badly timed investment in the Russian market that had forced it to stand on the sidelines of a wave of brewing industry consolidation.
What is special about the Carlsberg turnaround is really how Cees de Hart has triggered the turnaround by returning the company to its original purpose that the founder set out. And really engaging the workforce.
When I think back to 2015, I suppose what for me was very different about Carlsberg versus today was I don't think we had any real clarity on the way forward. We looked at our competitors, we looked at the industry consolidation that was happening, and it was happening pretty fast at that time, and there was a lot of concern about the future.
Now, what is the Carlsberg 1883? When I met Cees de Hart, I wanted to ask, how do you deal with all these issues at once?
We put it together in a strategy which is called Sail 22. So we have a 7-year program, if you like, the start of a journey. On the other hand, we realized ourselves, together with our top people, that we didn't have the money to do the journey. So we said, okay, let's do two things. We create the future for ourselves, and that's then called Sail 22, but we fund our own journey.
Reluctant to ask shareholders for funds, de Hart adopted a cut costs and invest the savings in premium brand strategy. The plan addressed the concerns that had prompted the Carlsberg Foundation, which has controlled the brewer since 1876, to seek out a new chief executive in the first place. The brewer's debt had been mounting, turnover and profit was down, stemming from the decision in 2008 to take full control of Baltica, Russia's leading beer brand, a move that turned spectacularly sour because after that deal, Russia accounted for a third of Carlsberg's revenues. Just as a countrywide alcoholism epidemic prompted the government to crack down on sales and increase taxes on beer by 200%. In 2014, another blow. International sanctions after Russia's incursion into Ukraine undermined its economy. Carlsberg's Eastern European sales slumped.
It meant that as the margins declined and as the overall profitability declined, they were unable to react in that market, and then it removed any firepower for them to participate in significant M&A in other markets, or even to support other markets with the kind of marketing spend that would be required versus very strong and very deep-pocketed competitors.
That wave of mergers and acquisitions had led to the creation of companies like Anheuser-Busch InBev, or ABI, a brewing behemoth 9 times Carlsberg's size. The first leg of the turnaround was called Funding the Journey. The idea was to cut costs to free up cash to invest in the growth leg of the turnaround, dubbed Sail 22. Breweries were closed in Russia and China to get rid of excess capacity, supply chains revamped to strip out costs. The results can be seen in the net debt to earnings chart. It peaks in 2008, the purchase of the Russian brewery. It drops onto Hart's 2015 appointment as his cost savings are used to pay off debt and his investments in brands improve earnings.
It's all about basically taking the cost out of the business so that you could then release cash to invest in the core brands. Also reduce your debt from, it was around about 3 times net debt EBITDA when he came in, so that you could reduce that debt and actually release cash to do in M&A.
The Funding the Journey program, it's not something that was finite. Carlsberg is continually striving to cut costs and improve efficiencies, which is why this machine here has just had its head redesigned so it can pick up not just one but two of Carlsberg's newest products, the Draftmaster. And this is a Draftmaster. It's a new type of lightweight keg, but it's still pretty heavy. What's really interesting is that all of the production of this type of keg is done in this plant instead of all around Europe. They bring the beer in. It turns out it's much cheaper and it's still part of Funding the Journey. The second leg of the turnaround, Sale 22, is a 5-year plan designed to generate sales growth through investment in premium brands as well as specialty and no-alcohol beers. The impact can be seen here. Last year, the value of sales increased 6.5%, while beer volumes climbed just under 5%. Carlsberg is selling more expensive beer. The strategy can be seen directly in the real and projected gains in earnings per share and a share price near record levels.
Carlsberg has taken out a lot of cost through the Funding the Journey program. And then they've used that money to invest into growth, into really moving the company up market again and really get back to a winning streak.
Coming up, Hart tells me the combination of Funding the Journey and Sale 22 would have been impossible to achieve without a significant management shakeout.
Cutting costs is not an inspirational thing, but that we cut costs in order to reinvest in the business and give something back as well to the shareholder, that was, I think, a trigger.
Cognizant that Carlsberg needed to invest and loath to ask shareholders to forego dividends, Cees Hart came up with a two-pronged turnaround strategy. But he had to get senior management on board.
He brought and built clarity around the strategy, around how he saw us growing and how he saw us funding that growth in a way that was stretching but everyone felt was realistic. I think the other part of that was the way that he did that. It wasn't a top-down. He didn't come in and say, I've got the answers. He came in and engaged the top 60 and spoke to them and asked them for their ideas, and they had to create the strategy with him.
The top 60 are the leaders of the countries and the leaders of the functions. And they were together. And basically we said, look, we have an issue here. We have dissatisfied shareholders. We look at our feedback of our people. They're not satisfied. Our supervisory board is not satisfied. Our customers have the feel that we don't come with the right brews and innovation and so on and so forth. So really, we have an issue. I'm not going to solve that issue for you. We are going to solve that issue. And that means that we're going to co-create the future.
That must have been pretty shocking for a lot of those people in the room. How many of those top 60 then, in 2015, are still in the top 60?
Yeah, I raised that question. Of course, I knew who were new, but we were in December 2018 in Belgium, in Grimbergen, where one of our beers is coming from. And there were 22 hands up at the moment that I asked who was with us.
About a third.
About a third, yeah.
So that's a pretty telling statistic. You've had a pretty big turnover at the top in the management.
Yes.
Now, they haven't necessarily left Carlsberg, but...
I think most of them did.
Right.
We started really from the top. So we really started with the executive committee. And at the moment that you start to bring in new people in your executive committee, they start as well to work with people they really feel can do the work for the future. And change people.
I want to show you this Carlsberg building because it's very special. It's built around an old silo. In the middle part there are no windows, so that becomes a sort of void, but it's more than a symbolic void, it's a physical void. Cees Hart's office, when he became CEO, is on the top floor, and he used to say to his staff, I could die up here and no one would find me for 3 days because no one's walking past. So what he's done is he's moved his office from the top floor down to the second floor. That means he's in the thick of it. He's collaborating, he's communicating. Hart is taking his move from the top floor to the second floor one big step further, a completely new headquarters.
It will be opened in Q1 2020, but then we will be in a totally new office where everybody has open office. There are only 4 floors in total, and the consequence of that is that we will all mingle together. And by that, I think there will be much more energy in the business, or even more energy in the business. People come in and see that it's a contemporary business. That's not what the kind of feel you have at the moment you step in now.
One of the other concerns at the Carlsberg Foundation was that the company had veered from the vision laid out by the founder J.C. Jacobsen in the 19th century, that profits of the company would be channeled to support art, science and culture. The Little Mermaid is the #1 tourist attraction in Copenhagen, commissioned by Carlsberg. Carl Jacobsen, the son of the founder, fell in love with the story by Hans Christian Andersen about a mermaid who gave up everything in order to be able to swim to the surface and be with her beloved. But then she died. But the link with Carlsberg goes on because Carlsberg Foundation is still funding the arts here in Denmark. Carl Jacobsen founded the Glyptoteket, a museum devoted to sculpture in downtown Copenhagen that was packed the day I visited. And it was this contribution to society, the foundation's purpose, that Flemming Besenbacher wanted to nurture when he was looking for a new chief executive. What was it about Cees to Hart that made you think that he was going to be a fit for Carlsberg and also the objectives of the foundation?
Why did I take him? Well, I think first of all, Cees had done a fantastic turnaround in Friesland Campina, and I could see a turnaround was also needed in Carlsberg.
Between 2009 and 2015, de Hart had presided over the successful integration of 2 Dutch dairy cooperatives, which, before the merger, had considered themselves to be virtual enemies.
But also from talking to him, he specifically said to me, if I take this job, I do not take it only if this was an ordinary job just to create value for shareholders. I've been used to work for farmers in the Netherlands. If I take this job, I would like to work for scientists in Denmark, with the foundation and so forth. Yeah. Also was willing to focus on the purpose, also willing to focus on sustainability.
One of the things about Carlsberg that I've been hearing a lot about is purpose-driven leadership. Mm-hmm. Now, can you explain what is that about? What is it?
Well, basically it comes back to why. Why would you come to the office? What is basically you think that you and your colleagues can contribute not only to the business but maybe a broader perspective as well. So it comes, and that's where we started. What is the what, the how and the why? And many companies start with the why, but we were finding that a bit difficult to find the why at the beginning.
Had it been lost, the why at Carlsberg?
We think so, and it took me personally almost 9 months to 12 months to really find the why.
What about your own journey in leadership?
Well, I think the biggest decision in my life was to move out of HR. The point that really made me think was having an exit talk with a person that needed to be fired and was as old as my father. And the decision was not taken by myself. So I was, if you like, literally almost the executor. And I thought this is not how I would like to spend my life, to execute things that other people have decided. And then I started to feel like, will I come to, well, maybe not CEO of a company, but in leadership roles. And in Unilever that was very much via marketing. So I moved from HR to marketing and then moved the ladder to general management.
One of the things I've heard you describing your management team is like a football team. And not everyone's a striker.
It is head office against the countries, it's marketing against sales, it's finance against the rest of the world. So it felt a bit like this is a company, let's say that we have 30 countries, that we are playing on 30 different soccer fields. and one of the first pictures I showed to people said, well, we are now all playing in different teams on different soccer fields. We are now in the future one team. And that means that we have the guys in the countries, they are the strikers. They need to score the goals. That means as well that they need to know everything about the consumer and the customer in their country. Then we have a few midfielders, supply chain, group commercial. These are the people that need to make the plans, passing the ball, if you like, or the plans at the right moment with the right specs and so on and so forth. But they are not scoring the goals. And then we have the people in the defense like HR and finance and legal, and they need to make sure that we don't make big mistakes or develop our people and so on and so forth.
Coming up, more from Case to Hart and the UK advertising campaign and what it tells you about the new Carlsberg.
So why don't we have a beer?
Yeah, let's do that.
When Case to Hart joined Carlsberg, he launched a dual recovery plan, savings and growth. There was also cultural change, and that's where Carlsberg's purpose statement comes in.
I started to talk about that we brew for a better today, and then basically we talked about the quality and the brews, and basically that we needed to perform better, but as well about the future. We said at a certain moment we brew for a better today and tomorrow.
In April this year, de Hart showed he was prepared to walk the walk in one of Carlsberg's key 18 Western European markets. In Britain, Carlsberg was traditionally made with a 3.8% alcohol content, lower than elsewhere where the taste was richer. And as more craft beers came into the UK market, tastes evolved, leaving Carlsberg's brew behind. Irena Golfman worked on the strategy for Carlsberg's advertising agency in London.
We realised that the market was starting to shift and people's tastes and priorities and palates were changing. People were demanding better quality beer. So it wasn't as much about consuming loads and loads of it. It was about consuming beer that you thought was of good quality. And we realised that Carlsberg had started to suffer from a perception issue, first and foremost.
It's like drinking the bath water your nan died in.
Carlsberg announced it had changed its beer and introduced new Carlsberg in the British market.
Well, it was a brave campaign because you have to admit your mistakes, and in the UK market anyway, the Carlsberg brand was probably thought of as a mainstream brand rather than premium, and it's premium everywhere else in Europe, and that is the way they want to take the beer.
And the beer suffered.
Danish superstar Mads Mikkelsen told the UK audience that
We Danes don't cry into our beer. We focus on brewing a better one.
Brewing for a better today, that means that we're never satisfied with what we have. And that's, I think, what we recognized in the UK. Maybe the consumers earlier than we did, because we saw our market share declining, and that means that the customer and the consumers don't like your brand anymore. So we digged into that, and we looked at the brews, and we improved.
If you look at the recent advert in the UK where they said Carlsberg, probably not the best beer, almost being self-deprecating regarding what had been a platform of their advertising for years, then that really indicates a flexible mindset towards brands and a recognition that you need portfolios that satisfy the needs of local consumers in individual markets.
de Hart's efforts to return to the scientific underpinnings of the founder are felt here, in the Carlsberg Research Laboratory, which over the years has delivered breakthroughs such as the first cultivation of pure yeast and the invention of the pH scale.
And so these are all the brews?
Well, these are actually when people have been employed with Carlsberg or here in the Carlsberg laboratory for more than 25 years, then you get your own bottle of beer. And look, here's mine.
Oh, it's a big one, looks like champagne.
Yeah, and there was a beautiful, wheat passion fruit lager.
Oh, very nice. Tell me more about what's happened since we've seen Case to Hart come to Carlsberg, because I believe there's been more integration.
I think there has been a lot of integration and there has been a lot more of agility, but also I would say that, you know, here from a research point of view, we have been very much integrated now into the whole business and especially into all the strategic priorities for SAIL 22.
Really? How so?
Well, I think, you know, we have a lot of focus now on really supporting the strategic areas like core beer, making a difference in that, craft and specialty, non-alcoholic beer. And here the research laboratory can really support a lot with completely new types of yeast strains producing non-alcohol, and also other types of yeast strain that can give a consumer benefit, better taste experience, aromas and so on.
And that plays into SAIL 22 because it's got the focus on core beer but also new products.
Yes, it does, very much. So again, I would say we are today very, very much on the agenda in you know, the whole commercial agenda, and we are today very much in front. Also, you know, when we have commercial meetings and when we have visitors and so on. So again, I think that's also the history of the laboratory. Carlsberg has quite a unique history when it comes to research and science, and especially also having the more fundamental science which was founded here in the laboratory.
One of Carlsberg's key areas for growth is Asia, the driver of its most recent revenue gains.
Particularly where we see a lot of growth coming from is in premiumization, so driving into more premium categories, more premium brands. And that's really been a fantastic driver for us in China, for instance, where we have a good geographic footprint and some very strong positions in some specific markets, but we're really looking to expand beyond those, to launch into new cities and to particularly launch with the more premium brands in the portfolio.
Since 2014, Carlsberg's increased its share of the premium market in China to 14% from 9%, while ABI's share has dropped to 43%. China helped drive a 9.5% increase in Carlsberg's 2019 first quarter beverage sales in Asia, which now accounts for a third of Carlsberg's total beverage sales. Still, ABI represents a threat alongside Heineken, which last year struck a partnership deal with China's biggest brewer.
You know, China, as I say, Carlsberg have done a very good job there, but you would imagine that in the areas and channels in China where Carlsberg have been doing well, there will be competitive pressures coming in.
Carlsberg is well aware of the competitive challenges it faces, but even so, to hear it from the people I talked to at Carlsberg during my visit there, Case to Hart seems to have succeeded in injecting a new sense of, yes, I'll use his word, purpose into the company. The question is how to keep the momentum going.
By renewing ourselves, if you like, setting the sails, tweaking it, making sure that we keep our speed, having 3 times a year the top 60, being self-critical on are we really delivering, maybe sometimes being a bit paranoid as well about whether the wind is coming from another side than we expected, whether the waves are a bit higher than we forecasted, these kind of things. And the top team is really very good at that.
What advice would you give to another chief executive who was looking at a company that also needs to be turned around?
Plan for the worst and don't overpromise. Yes.